Guru Shri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitantam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Saritam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padhan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakkanvitamscha Om Akantmirandasya Gyanajana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadhamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Janmadyasya Yaton Vayati Tarata Sharte Shwabhikya Swarat Tene Brahma Hridhaya Radhika Vaye Muyanti Yasuraya Tejo Varim Ridham Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mnisha Dhamna Svena Sada Narasta Kuhakam Satyam Padam Dimahi Ariom Tat Sat. Amsabuya prayers. So the last statements we were hearing is the Lord is Adrishta Damni. He is not perceivable for those whose minds are preoccupied with the Prakriti. Oops. And an analogy was given, and it's just like the sense objects which cannot know the particular senses. But he is able to be known by the soul who performs various spiritual sadhanas. And according to the sadhana they take, then they can have a certain perception of the Godhead. Brahmati Paramatmeti Bhagavaniti Shapate. So the perception of the Godhead has two divisions, an easy perception and a more difficult one. Sugeyam and Durgeyam. Surgeya means the easy, more easily perceived aspect of the Godhead. The more easily perceived aspect of the Godhead is the Brahman feature. Because the Brahman feature, it seems, is not unlike the soul itself. So the soul being Anu, it means atomic in size, irreducible. He's practically inconceivable for this reason. Krishna says as such in Gita also, Apremeyasa, he uses the word immeasurable. He uses the word achintya, which means unable to be conceived by the mind. All these words he uses to describe the Atman, not even Brahman, to describe the Atman. So by certain processes like yoga, sadhana, if you can stop the psychic apparatus, like shut it down through yoga processes and be situated in the samadhi, then you can have awareness of the nature of your own self. And by that awareness and understanding its non-difference from Brahman, so then you can have what is known as Brahman realization. So it's actually not exactly Brahman realization as such, because no one can really realize Brahman exactly, because you can't realize something without qualities. Klesha adhikataras tesham avyakta sakta chetasam. But it's very difficult for people who are attached to the impersonal feature to realize that feature. It's just like trying to describe an object in this world without describing its qualities. So you can't say the name, form, or guna of the object. So like the table, if I say describe the table, it's already self-defeating because I've already given it a name, which is a quality. So how do you talk about the table or realize a table without its qualities? That is very difficult. Basically, it's almost impossible. But the way it becomes possible is by the samadhi, understanding the non-distinction between Atman and Brahman. Effectively, it is Brahman realization. Well, this is considered as Sugeham, is the more easy realization of the Godhead, which is practically impossible. So what is a more difficult realization? So that is described in the next two verses that we're supposed to be looking at here. The more difficult realization is realization of the personality of Godhead. So why is that more difficult? Because you say, well, how is it more difficult? Bhagavan has Nam, Rup, Guna, Lila. So how is it more difficult than, something that doesn't have Nam, Rup, Guna, Lila? Because Bhagavan has spiritual Nam, Rup, Guna, Lila. It doesn't have material Nam, Rup, Guna, Lila. So the material Nam, Rup, Guna, Lila is what we're familiar with. Of course, Lila is not the right word. Karma is the more appropriate word for the material nature. So that we have conception of. But we now have conception of a spiritual, like a spiritual name. Even when we think our name is spiritual, in our minds it is material. We may call ourselves, like I call my name is Jaya, Jagannath. And I say that is a spiritual name, but basically it's like a nickname. That's how it gets processed in the mind, actually. When I was new devotee on Guru Kuli Boy, he was in Chicago. His name was Krishna Balaram. So we used to call him KB, just thus betraying our sense of the spirituality of the name, right? It was just basically like a nickname. So we would call him KB. So one senior devotee, he chastised us for calling him KB. He said, you're losing all the opportunity to make spiritual advancement. You're supposed to call Krishna Balaram that KB. And we're like, okay, Prabhu. And then when he left, we said KB again. Because we think the name is material. We practically can't help ourselves. So this is why more difficult, actually. The idea that there can be a spiritual name, form, and qualities, that is actually more difficult to conceive. It is more easy to conceive of God as devoid of these things, actually, because we think about it from the reference point of our own materiality. So we think we know what is Nam, Rupa, Guna, Lila. So taking that as a reference point and being afflicted by egocentrism and anthropocentrism. Egocentrism means we take our way of existing as central. So, or as a reference point by which we understand everything. And anthropocentrism is the same egocentrism, but just in relation to humanity. So our way of being human is taken as a reference point for understanding everything that is human. So if you hear God is a human, then because of anthropocentrism, you think that God is material. Because the only humans that you know are material, yourself and then everyone else you know. So then we say, no, he's human, but he's spiritual human, not material human. That just sounds like childishness. And people take it that way also. So it is more difficult to realize that consciousness and existence and bliss can have a form and have a name. It is a little easier to see as impersonal. So that spiritual Nam, Rupa, Guna, Lila, you'll not realize without bhakti and a certain type of bhakti also. So that is why it is more difficult to perceive. That is basically the explanation that we're going to hear in this verse. Even when Krishna came in the material world and does Leela, so many people see him also by his own kindness, his own generosity, his own spiritual power. He allows even those with material eyes to see him. But how do they see Krishna? Taking themselves as the center, and they don't know God as a center. So naturally you take yourself as a center, and then you make the judgment from that, as seeing one's own self as a center. So they would see Krishna as human, and they would make all sorts of apparatus. Like when Krishna went to Mathura, and he went inside one place. There was one Dobiwala, I think. He was servant of Kamsa. So Krishna asked for some clothes. I want to have the clothes. And Dobiwala said disrespectfully, "These are the clothes of the king." He said in a disrespectful tone. "These are the clothes of the king. Don't touch them." Like that. So Krishna had something for him. Gave him a little karate chop to the neck, and his head got removed by a karate chop to the neck. A little extra, but karate chop and the head got removed. And then he took the clothes. And of course, the devotees love to hear this. So we're here for it. Jai, Bhagawan. So why do we want to do like that? He's seeing Krishna, the absolute truth, but he's seeing with the material eyes. And so he doesn't see Krishna. It's seeing but not seeing. Pashana Pina Pashati, this phrase comes spoken by Shukadeva Goswami. Pashana Pina Pashati means seeing but not seeing. This is spoken, of course, in relationship to the veritably attached Griha Medi. They don't want to give up their attachment to I and mine. So even though they see everything around them perishing, they're no. Maybe they're on the airplane is crashing. Everyone is screaming so loud. Why are you screaming so loud? It's over. Now is the time for communion with God. Nothing can be done now. But they're attached to I and mine. It's called Abhinivesh. It's a klesha of Abhinivesh. You keep clinging to the I and mine. No, please, someone save us. No, it's over. So very difficult to realize the truth when you have all these attachments to the matter like this. So Bhagavan, for this reason, becomes very difficult to realize. You have to have bhakti to spiritualize the I. Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena. Santa sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayant, Brahma Samhita says, without the ointment of prema of the I. And then the Santa and the devotees, they see the Lord within and without, with the eyes anointed with the salve of love, they see. So bhakti is the internal energy, like sunshine. So the material eye cannot see without sunshine. There's some facsimile of it, like electricity, also sunshine power. So it cannot see without that. So actually, although the eye, in relationship to the sense organ, the sense of sight connected with the sense organ known as eye, it has the potential to see, but its ability to see actually depends on something outside of itself, the sunshine. So the soul has potential to see God, but that potential is actualized by something outside of himself. That is the internal energy known as bhakti. So bhakti is like sunshine. So with the sunshine of bhakti, then the spiritual eye is illumined, then he can see Bhagavan. But people are not agreeable to bhakti. So then seeing God is very difficult. And even if he appears, it becomes very difficult to see him because they're attached to I and mine. They don't have any bhakti. So this is why I said it's more difficult to see the personality of God than to realize Brahman. And even if you talk about Brahman and personality of Godhead to normal people, unless you have Bhakti Shakti, then they will be more attracted to Brahman feature and more attracted to them. Also, because they say, oh, Krishna, they say, oh, he's Indian God. Why are you dressed like an Indian? You also have the doubt probably. Why he has dhoti on and peacock feather in their head? Come on. Y'all a little bit weird. This is God. And he has more cows. He has so many cows that if you were to count the number of cows, it would be more than the humans on Earth right now, more than all the entities on Earth. You can take the amount of cows he has and they can circumambulate, the globe conception hundreds of times over. That's how many cows Krishna will play. They'll say this is God. So they say, can you tell me about that Brahman feature? They don't want to hear about personality of Godhead. Unless you have Bhakti Shakti, you have empowerment to make it very attractive. So for all these reasons, very difficult to realize God. So this is called Durigaya, more difficult to realize. So here's a verse, Manishinon tar hirdisan veshitam swashakti virna vavisha trividbhi vadem yatadharuni Savaya Mama Shesha Vishesha Maya Nisheda Nirvana Sukhana Bhuti Sasarvanama Sacha Vishnu Rupa Prasidatam Anruptatam Shakti. And a translation here. So just as great learned brahmanas who are expert in performing ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices can extract the fire dormant within wood and fuel by chanting the 15 Samidheni mantras. Vanem yata dharuni panchadashnam manishaya nishkarshanti gudham. So the brahmanas in Vedic culture, we hear, they were very expert at the mantras. So they can light the fire by just chanting the mantra. So fire is there in wood, but you cannot perceive it. So the brahmanas will use their mantras and then the fire will come out. So like that, the Supreme Lord is existing inside everyone. Manishu Nantar Hidisani Vishna. Swashakti Brinava Vishatri Vidhi. The Supreme Lord is Antahridi. Antahridi means he is residing in the heart of everything, actually. Not only the heart of the soul, you can say, or the body, but he is also in the pillar. He is also inside the pillar. Why not? He is all pervading. So that means he's also in the pillar. So that's what Hiranyakashipu asked. Is your God in the pillar? Well, I said, yeah, he's in the pillar also. Sounds a little strange. How is he in the pillar? So Hiranyakashipu hit the pillar, and then out came the Lord. So the Lord is born from a pillar also. You can come out. You can extract him from a pillar also if you have the bhakti. We, as we would say, don't try this at home, folks. If you're in, if you get attacked by one of the Middle Eastern traditions, and they're about to cut off your head, and they say, "Why do you worship God?" You say, "Well, God is everywhere." And they say, "Is he also in the pillar?" And you say, "Yes, he is also in the pillar." And then they destroy the pillar, and nothing comes out. Because you have to have the bhakti, otherwise nothing will come out. Then they'll chop their head immediately. No, save me. But he is also in the pillar. He antahridi. He inside everything, actually. But here, because the meditation is for the human beings, so they say specifically inside the heart, because the yogis and devotees meditate like this. So saniveshitam, he's being situated in the inner core of the heart. Swashakti Brinavabis. So he is situated there, Swashakti be along with his internal energy. So the Navabis means 9 different types of internal energy are there, like Vimala Shakti, Anugraha Shakti, Yoga Maya Shakti. There's so many types of internal energies. You can say forms they take. So he is situated there inside the, along with his internal potency. So Manishino here means the, it refers to the devotees. So the devotees, they're able to extract the Lord from inside the heart, just as the brahmanas can extract fire from the wood, chanting the mantras. So the devotees extract the Lord from the heart or from the inner substance through bhakti yoga. That is our mantra that we pull the Lord out. Specifically, Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We do it with the devotion though. Now, of course, Hare Krishna itself is the bhakti itself, but it should be done in a certain way. We'll see that in just a second. So Manishaya Nishkaranti Gudham. So Manishaya means with purified intelligence through bhakti. Then the Nishkarshanti Gudham. So Gudam means the Lord is Gudam, it's like secret, or although not manifest normally, it can be extracted by Bhakti Yoga. All right, so this is the first stanza. So I'll just read the part again because I didn't finish it, I just started. This is great learned brahmanas who are expert in performing ritualistic ceremonies and sacrifices can extract the fire dormant within wood and fuel by chanting the 15 Samidhini mantras, that's proving the efficacy of the Vedic mantras. So those who are actually advancing consciousness, Manisha, right? In other words, those who are Krishna conscious, this Prabhupada is making it clear, can find a super soul who, by his own spiritual potency, is situated within the heart. Okay, so the heart is covered by the 3 modes of material nature and the 9 material elements. That's how Prabhupada is taking this word Navabi and Tribi. So, and the other commentary, so Navabis refers to the spiritual Shaktis, but here's Prabhupada is taking it as the gunas of Tribi as gunas of nature, and Navabi means the things that are produced from the gunas of nature, like Mahatattva, Ahankara, Manas, and so on, Gyanendriyas, Karmendriyas, and the Mahabhutas, Tamashas, and all that. So we're covered by all the elements of Prakriti, basically. And also by the 5 material elements and senses, right? So these 27 elements constitute the external energy of the Lord. Okay. So great yogis meditate upon the Lord who is situated as a super soul, Paramatma, within the core of the heart. May that super soul be pleased with me. The super soul is realized when it's eager for liberation from the unlimited varieties of material life. When it actually attains such liberation, when he engages in the transcendental loving service of the Lord and realizes the Lord because of his attitude of service. The Lord may be addressed by very spiritual names which are inconceivable to the material senses. When will that Supreme Personality of Godhead be pleased with me? So the nice verses quoted here by Prabhupada and Sri Vishwanath. Pravishna Karna Ranjena Swadnam Bhavasarodu Dunoti Shamalam Krishna Salilashri Natashara. This verse says that Bhagavan Pravishna Karna Ranjena, he enters through the ear and into the chamber of the heart, through Srimad Bhagavatam specifically. Then Krishna enters inside. It's like the door is always open, right? That's a problem. It's like before the world got really ghetto, especially if you go to the southern states, then they keep the doors unlocked. Here also, they keep the door unlocked. So anyone can walk in at any moment. So the ears are like that, always open. So any sound comes in, usually poison is coming in. But Krishna also can enter through that doorway, and through that door, he comes to the inner part, the heart. In the sound of Srimad Bhagavatam. Swanam Bhavasororuham. So he sits there in the sort of the heart space, the lotus of the heart, which has potential different types of bhavas, Dasya Bhav, Sakya Bhav, and so on. Dunote Shamalam Krishna. And he removes all the impurities there in the heart. Saleyashri Tashara. This is compared to autumn rains on pools of muddy water. Apparently, during the raining season, 4 months of rainy season in India, so all the dirt comes to the surface because it's raining very heavy. But in autumn, it's just like a light drizzle. So that light drizzle removes all the dirt on top of the surface of the water. So how the Lord purifies the heart is being compared like this. It's like autumn rains on pools of muddy water. Dunoti Shamalam Krishna. The rain is falling. The rain of Harikata falling in the heart and is removing all the dirt. The difference is that the autumn rains just make the dirt settle onto the bottom, but the rains of Harikata actually removes the dirt. So that is a difference there. But this verse is told to describe how God can be situated there in the heart space. So the living entity who is in all sorts of Maya, Savaiva Mam Shesha Vishesha Maya, Yishera Nirvana Sukhanubhuti. So Mama Ashesha Vishesha Maya. So the Jiva, he's situated in all sorts of Maya. We all know this sort of Mayas that we're in. So many varieties of it. Vishesha means speciality. This is a special Maya. So we're situated in all Maya, but by this Bhakti Yoga, Nisheda Nirvana Sukhanubhuti. You can have realization, Anubhuti. Anubhuti means the realization of Sukha. Sukha means the happiness, Nirvana. So Sri Vishnu, the nirvana, the word vana means arrows. So nirvana means without the arrows. So in the material world, when you experience sukha, it is sukha with the arrows, right? There is so much pain that comes with that sukha, because sukha is the opposite side of dukkha. So that's actually, the sukha is a setup. The more sukha something gives you, the more dukkha you're going to feel in the future. That's just how it works. You can't have one without the other. So you want that sukha? Yeah, I want that sukha. Okay, you take this dukkha also. So if you get a lot of sukha from the object, then you're going to get a lot of dukkha also. So that is the tragedy of material existence. Everyone keeps pursuing the material happiness, and they don't know, to the degree they get the material happiness, they also get to suffer. So this is the tragedy of it all. So this is called sukha with the arrows. But we want sukha without the arrows. Is that available? Is that an option? Can I have the sukha without the arrows? So yes, there is sukha without the arrows also. But that is when you realize the Lord's spiritual energy, Radhini Shakti. So Prabhupada is also quoting, Sri Vishwanath is also quoting this verse, this one. Ladini Sandini Samvit Twayeka Sarva Samstito Lada Tapa Kari Mishra Twayi Naguna Varchite. So these three are the Lord's spiritual potencies, Ladini Sandini Samvit Shakti. And Hlada Tapa Kari Mishra. So in the material world, the Hlada, the happiness is mixed with the Tapa Kari. That means the arrows, the suffering. So we can realize happiness without that mixture only when we realize the spiritual nature of the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, it is happiness with the arrows. So this is difficult to realize because this requires bhav bhakti. So, Sri Rupa Goswami is telling that bhakti has 6 characteristics. There's 6 characteristics: kleshagni, shubhada, moksha laguta krita sudhurlabha, shradananda visheshatma, Shri Krishna akarshani chasa. Another verses there. The 6 characteristics of bhakti: it removes kleshas, it gives auspiciousness, it belittles moksha laguta krita, and sudurlabha is rare. It is condensed bliss, Radhananda Visheshatma. The essence of it is condensed bliss. And it attracts Krishna and his parshadas. Those 6 characters of bhakti. And these 6 characters of bhakti pertain to the 3 stages of bhakti: sadhana, bhava, and prema. So each are uniquely glorified by a particular pair. So sadhana bhakti is glorified by the first pair, kleshagni and shubhada. Bhava bhakti has 4 qualities, the previous 2, but uniquely glorified by moksha laguta krita and sudurlabha. So it makes light of moksha because it's more blissful than moksha. And it is very rare to attain. Sudurlabha is rare, very difficult to attain. So rare to attain. Why is it difficult to attain? What is the reason for its difficulty? So Rupa Goswami gives 2 reasons, right? You remember? So the reason why it's difficult to attain. Reason number 1 is that you have to have attachment. Otherwise, you will not attain it. And that means attachment only to bhakti without attachment to other processes also. Srila Jiva Goswami makes that point in his commentary. So first there should be, just like sometimes we like bhakti also, a little calming, hurt nobody, little gyan, hurt nobody. So that's not gonna work. Should develop bhav bhakti. We will have some bhakti also. But if you want bhav bhakti, then you have to be attached only to bhakti process also. And within that bhakti process, there should be a sakti, right? And that's the first reason it's rare. And then even if you have that, it's rare because Krishna waits in order to make your attachment basically transform into desperation. Then that's attachment. What's the word I'm looking for? That is attachment, like superlative. I'm looking for another cooler word. And when it turns into desperation, then he reciprocates. All right. It's like when Krishna disappears and the gopis are crying profusely and singing Gopi Geet in their kirtan. Sung in utter desperation makes him appear. So there's two reasons. So this nice verse is called, so for the first one, he quotes a verse here. It's very nice. Jnanata sudabha muktir bhuktir yaknadi punyata. So it says here that mukti is very easy to attain by jnana. And bhukti is very easy to attain by performing the yagyas and etc. and getting the piety. Say yam sadhana sahasra, but only after thousands of sadhanas. So a little contradiction can come up here. If it's easy to attain, but only after thousands of sadhana, how is it easy to attain? That's like there's a little bit of a contradiction there. So Jiva Goswami says in commentary, it's a long commentary. I'm just summarizing the major point. He said easy to attain because he said the way it should be read is that mukti is easy to attain by gyan and bhukti is easier to attain by piety only after attaining attachment to those goals by thousands of sadhanas. In other words, you have to be dedicated to the mukti, dedicated to bhukti. Otherwise, so many obstacles come up in obtaining it. Of course, mukti should be obvious enough. But even when we want to enjoy something simple in this world, so many obstacles come. And then you just say, you know what, forget it. You know, we use other expletives usually. Well, we say, forget it. Because you're not dedicated, you're not attached to that goal. So then it takes thousands of sadhanas, basically, you know, to get the attachment. And then after you get the attachment, then it becomes easy to attain. That is it, the meaning Jiva Goswami says. So similarly, but Hari Bhakti Sudurlabha. But Hari Bhakti here means the Bhav Bhakti, because that's the subject matter under discussion. That is Sudurlabha. Why is it Sudurlabha? Because if you undertake thousands of sadhanas, first of all, you're not going to get Bhav Bhakti. So if you're doing like karma and yoga and this, that you're not going to get Bhav Bhakti. Okay, I'll do the Bhakti yoga. But if you do Bhakti yoga and you mix it with other sadhanas, also you will not get the Sakti. Because you'll not be one-pointed. So to get that attachment, you got to be one-pointed. Tasma ekada manasa bhagavan satatampati shota vyaktita vyasha shot pujas. This verse was also quoted. You gotta be one pointed if you're doing a lot of different, little bit of this, little bit of that, little bit of that, little bit of that. It's like nowadays you hear this in spiritual circle. I'm eclectic. A very cool little word. I'm a spiritual eclectic. You know what is eclectic? Eclectic means like a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from there, putting it together yourself. And then you say you follow everything or you follow nothing. So yeah, okay, you can be a spiritual eclectic, but you're not get bhakti like that. So you can't get it by other sadhanas. You cannot get it by bhakti mixed with other sadhanas. And you have to do only bhakti yoga, and you have to make progress to a sakti with that bhakti yoga. So for this reason, it's very rare to attain, because unfortunately our hearts are afflicted by the witch, and witch done a spell on us. You know, the witches, you must see the movies with the witches, or Harry Potter, the wizards and witches, they do the spells on people, and they can control people's minds with the spells, the magic. So mukti spriha yava pishachi tridivartate tava. What is the rest of the verse? Now he's drawing blank because of pressure.
Tava bhakti sukha.
Yeah, tava bhakti sukha setra.
Katam avidaya.
Yeah, katama buddhayo. So pishachi means witch. Like witch, like Putana was called a pishachi, a witch. And doing the magic. So bhukti and mukti like a witch, doing the spell and making us dedicated to bhukti and mukti. So very hard. Tava bhakti sukha setra katam Abudayo Bhavat. How? Tell me how. Can the bhakti sukhasetra, how can the happiness of bhakti come in that heart that is afflicted by this, the magic of the witch of bhukti and mukti? How will it come in that heart? Abudayo Bhavat, how will the bhakti, Abudayo Bhavat, how will it manifest? The happiness of bhakti manifests in such a heart.
What's the word for witch?
Huh?
What's the word for witch?
Pishachi is a witch or sometimes ghostish, a ghost, and hunt it. Ghostly hunted. Just like when I'm in New York, I see a lot of them ghostly hunted people walking around. They're talking to the ether very loudly, and screaming and yelling and so on. So how is the bhakti like, ooh, that's the ghetto. I'm not going over there. So for all these reasons, the bhakti becomes very rare to attain. And without bhav bhakti, how you will see God inside and out. Without reti, without prema, how you will see God. So then it becomes very rare to attain the darshan of the Lord. So for this reason, the Lord is very rare to obtain. The nirvana sukhanubhuti, the realization of happiness without the arrows. Very hardly anyone is getting that experience. Sarva nama sacha Vishwarupa, the Supreme Lord is the Vishwarupa, he is the universal form. And so he contains all names, Sasarvanam. In one sense, everything is his form, everything is his name. This is the universal form. This is told. Prasidatam, may this Supreme Lord be merciful to me. Anirutatma Shakti, the reservoir of all inconceivable spiritual potencies. This is a very nice verse. I like this verse. I like the whole Hamsagliya prayers, actually. They're very nice. All right, I'm only stopping there. I didn't prepare more than that because I was depressed this morning for no reason. So, so it took me a while to shake it. I was just lying down and reading The Dark Night of the Soul. It was helping the depression, actually. And then the depression got removed. Then I set up. They said, okay, let me read Srimad Bhagavatam also. So I only prepared this much. Okay, anyone wants to say anything? Mukunda says, is one's bhakti considered one-pointed if they worship multiple forms of the Lord, i.e. Ram and Krishna? Well, yes and no. It's considered one-pointed because the target is only Bhagavan. So that is why it is one-pointed. Tasma ekana manasa, Bhagavan satutapati. So the mind is only focusing on Bhagavan. But it is also not one-pointed devotionally speaking. So the bhakti that they will get will be generic. They will not get a specific sort of devotional perfection in bhakti. There's a term for that, I forget the term. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, also in Priti Sundar, there's a specific term for this type of bhakti. I forget the term though, but basically mean generic bhakti. So, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, we're interested in specific bhakti, Braj bhakti. So that means you worship a specific form in a very specific mood. And ya yadiya ta urukaya vibhavayanti tata papu pranayase saranugraha. Then according to your meditation, you'll get realization. So, yeah, nice, interesting question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Hari Bol. Thanks for the great class. One quick clarification. I was curious. So whenever we hear about the impersonal path being more difficult, that's talking about more so like the sadhana in itself, because we've been learning today that actually.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yes, I think you're correct.
Okay, cool. Because like the full actualization or realization, obviously, as we've learned today, is much more difficult and personal. But in impersonal, Prabhupada often likes to make the point that, it's really dry and you're by yourself and yada, yada, yada.
Yes, the techniques of the other sadhanas are high pressure. So Krishna was glorifying bhakti in the beginning of chapter 9, Gita. Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitramidam Uttama Pratyaksha Avagamam Dharmiyam Susukam Kartumave. So he says there's Susukam Kartum, that this is joyfully performed. So in the commentaries, some of the charts explain joyfully Susukam Kartum. So this action is Susukam. Not only is it Sukha happening, it's Susukam, very happily performed. Why? Because it involves engagement of the senses and not a sort of artifice of restraint, which puts the living entity in high pressure, right? Even devotees, periodically we experience that when we decide to do a fast for Ekadashi, immediately high pressure. Unless you're attracted to that sort of stuff previously, then immediately disturbance comes when the senses have to restrain. That's actually one of the meanings of the word tapasya, actually, to restrain the senses and focusing on one thing. And one of the definitions of tapasya. So in these other sadhanas like that, but in bhakti, you get to use the senses, so it is happily performed. So in that sense, it is easier. And Gyan is harder in that way.
Awesome, thank you. And one more question. We were briefly talking about the Hladini Shakti and how that brings out the bliss potency of bhakti. I have a question about that. So whenever even a neophyte devotee feels like a blissful experience from kirtan, is that like the Hladini Shakti? Like we say chant Hare Krishna to get free from stress. Are we essentially saying get a taste of this Hladini Shakti, even though you're covered in offenses and it'll be really tiny?
Yeah, why we should doubt it otherwise? Bhakti is Hladini Shakti. It is the essence of the Hladini Shakti, in fact. That's how we receive it from our acharyas. So the happenings we experience in Bhakti, why we should doubt it otherwise? And the devotees make themselves confused because we know what we are. So we say, whenever we get any happiness, we're like, nah, it's not from bhakti. It's just my mind. Why you should think like that? So it is happiness experience in devotional service from bhakti. And suffering experience in devotional service is from aparad. That should be our conception. But what about the happiness of material thing? That's also from bhakti. Only now you're a bhakta. So you're getting some material thing. Bhakti can also give material. Why not? Everything can come from bhakti. Even the material happinesses. As a bhakta, they're also from bhakti. Especially if you experience material happiness without the arrows. You say from bhakti, why you should think otherwise? But the Hladini Shakti we receive in the beginning like seed, right? That's what Mahaprabhu was telling us, like a seed. So you have to water the seed so it will sprout the creeper and grow it to further and further states, right? So bhaktya sanjataya bhaktya. From bhakti that comes from bhakti. So this means bhav bhakti that comes from sadhana bhakti. So it's like you take the seed, which is like a little seed of Hladini Shakti, and you grow it with Hladini Shakti also. And then your being becomes more and more infused with Hladini Shakti until you attain a state known as Tadatmya, like oneness. Tadatmya images the fire and the iron rod. When the iron rod attains Tadatmya with fire, so it burns like fire, it's hot like fire, but it attains Tadatmya. So you keep growing the little bit of internal energy you get from sadhus until you attain Tadatmya with it. And then the bliss is 100%. Until then, maybe it's like a little 70%, 50%, whatever it is, 20% also. But it is bhakti only. Why we should think otherwise and confuse our hearts? Jaya. Okie dokie. Shall we pause here for today? Let's be honest. It's 0.00001%. That is also nice. Even the tiniest connection with the absolute is absolute. It cannot be otherwise. So that is also welcomed. I'll take it. Okie dokes. I'll make a little pause here. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Go Kamanandi Hari